So major nerves from the cervical and the brachial plexuses. So the cervical plexus comes from you have the anterior ventral rami of the spinal nerve. So these are the motor portions of the spinal nerves. And so these are innervating things that, just to back up a second. So the nerves come out of the spinal cord and then they go somewhere, okay? They don't turn around and come back. They leave the spinal cord and they go and they innervate something else. So if I have a nerve come out of here, it's going to go down my shoulder or down my back. And if I have one lower down, it's going to go down, maybe innervate my arm. One down is going to innervate somewhere in my chest. So these start from a place and they go down and they innervate things that are distal to where they started from. Okay, so these, and then sensory information starts somewhere else and comes up to the spinal cord. It doesn't go partway up, turn around, come back, and go various directions. These things all basically go from the spinal cord and go out from there. So, okay, so the cervical plexus, the anterior ventral ramus, so it leaves the cervical region, C1 through C5, on both right and left sides of the spinal cord. And so you're supplying the scalp, the neck, shoulders, and a little bit of the chest, okay? So or quite a bit of the chest. The phrenic nerve is the main one coming out of the cervical plexus, I want you guys to know. It's composed of cervical nerves 3, 4, and 5. It innervates the diaphragm, which means it's extremely important for breathing. So the little saying is C3, 4, and 5 keep the diaphragm alive. You have two phrenic nerves, one on each side, and if you break your neck around C3, 4, 5, if you break your neck at C2, between C2 and C3, then you have interrupted the flow of neural activity down to C3, 4, and 5, and you will not be able to breathe because your diaphragm won't move. So you'll end up with cardiac arrest. Respiratory arrest, then cardiac arrest. So brachial plexus is formed also from anterior or the ventral rami of spinal nerves C5 through T1, and supplies the shoulders and upper limbs and runs under the clavicle. Remember the collarbone. So the major nerves out of the brachial plexus are musculocutaneous, and it innervates the anterior muscles of the arm. So if you're in anatomical position, so it's going to innervate the anterior muscles of the arm, mostly the upper arm. The axillary does your shoulder as well as the teres minor muscle. I'll show you those. And the radial does the backside of the arm, the posterior arm, and the backside of the arm and the backside of the forearm. Okay. The median nerve does the muscles of the anterior forearm. If I can hold this up in the middle. And the ulnar nerve does a lot of hand muscles as well as a couple of the muscles in the forearm. Okay, next slide. And so this is a repeat of the previous slide, basically. All right, next slide. So look at the cervical plexus. Here's what it actually looks like close up. So you have the nerves coming out of here. So you have C1, C2, C3, C4, and C5. And so you see the branch. So here's a branch of C3. Here's a branch of C4. Okay, they come together and they travel down. All travels down to C5. And so C3, 4, and 5 keep the diaphragm alive. And those compose the phrenic nerve. There's a bunch of other nerves that come off here, but we're not going to talk about any of those nerves. I just wanted you to know about C3, 4, and 5. Those nerves come together. Branches of those nerves come together. You can see other branches go off and go other places as well. For instance, like C3 and 4 become the supraclavicular nerve. Okay, we're not worried about that in this class. All I want you to know is C3, 4, and 5. Parts of those come together to make the phrenic nerve. And then part of C5 branches off and goes to the brachial plexus. Okay, so part of it goes to the phrenic nerve and part of C5 goes to the brachial plexus. But so just remember C3, 4, and 5. Parts of those nerves go to make up the phrenic nerve. Okay, next slide. So here we are. Okay, so here's the major nerves from cervical brachial plexus, looking at this in an anatomical position. So from the cervical plexus you have the phrenic nerve, and then from the brachial plexus you have the axillary, musculocutaneous, median, and ulnar nerve, and the radial nerve. Radial nerve is posterior, and we're going to talk about all these positions of all these different nerves. For the axillary nerve, you can see the branches of it up here in the shoulder, okay, and it's coming out here out of the brachial. This is the brachial plexus here, okay, that's the brachial plexus there. And then you have the musculocutaneous, which is coming down here, and it's in the upper arm mostly. Then you have the radial nerve, which is traveling around back here and stays back behind. You can't really see it. And then we have the median nerve coming down through here. And then we have the ulnar nerve, which is coming down. And as you might suspect, the ulnar nerve follows the ulna. So it goes down and follows down like this. And the ulnar nerve is one that's your funny bone. If you hit that, it makes your little finger tingle. So if you press on that, you can actually make your little finger tingle. So you can do that on like your little brother or sister or something like that. So, no, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. But you can press on that yourself, and you actually make your little finger tingle, because that nerve goes all the way down to digit 5. Next slide. So, okay, here's the brachial plexus, showing on this side, showing the vertebrae and how these nerves all come out and form the plexus here. And then here's the plexus showing it going down the arm. So you have the different nerves. I'm going to show actually a little bit better picture of this. Okay, next slide. So this is a right arm anterior view. The nerves arising from the brachial plexus. You have the axillary nerve, okay? Then the musculocutaneous nerve here. So, and that is right here. And then the radial nerve is in green, and you see it back here, hiding back here behind the arm. Then you have your ulna and radius, okay? So your ulnar nerve is going to go right along next to the ulna. So there's your ulnar nerve there. And you can see ulnar nerve has come all the way from up here, and it's down here, and it goes and it keeps going, and it goes all the way down to the little finger down here. And then you have the median nerve here. Median nerve is going right down the middle of the arm, and it goes right across this part of your palm. And so if you have carpal tunnel syndrome, we'll talk about that in a second. But that's the median nerve is right coming all the way down there. So you can follow these guys all the way down the arm and see where they go. And you'll also notice there's something called in the brachial plexus. There's this structure looks like an M. So you have this M right here. Okay. So when you're looking for the brachial plexus and you're looking for nerves, you always look for the M. So you have the musculocutaneous, the median, and the ulnar nerve coming out of the M. So the M is musculocutaneous, cutaneous. I'm trying to write small, and this would be the median coming down out of that, and then and this would be the ulnar. Okay, so you look for your M in that structure. Musculocutaneous meaning muscle, cutaneous meaning sensory in the skin. Cutaneous meaning skin. So it's referring to sensory information coming in that muscle, in that nerve. Sorry. And also, a lot of times it's easy to use I look for mnemonics to use, so I use this one. I call it MARMU. So musculocutaneous, axillary, radial, median, and ulnar to help me remember the nerves. Okay, next slide. Here's a posterior view of the brachial plexus, just so you can see the radial nerve here is posterior, and you see it in green and how it goes all the way down the backside of the triceps muscle, as well as continuing on down into the backside of the forearm, so the posterior side of the forearm. Okay, next slide. Here's the brachial plexus looking at it again. What they've done is they've cut the clavicle here in this diagram to show the brachial plexus there. And also right next to it, the reason I show this slide, I want you to see there's an artery that runs right next to this called the subclavian. So sub meaning below, clavian meaning clavicle, so it's below the clavicle. So it's an artery below the clavicle. And there are injuries that happen to the brachial plexus, and sometimes you can have a rupture of the subclavian artery as well, so you can have bleeding in there. Blood is very irritating to nerves, and so it irritates the nerves. And can cause some damage, but also is irritating, so it can cause some. So if you irritate the nerve here, it's going to affect everything that's all the way down your arm. So depending on how many of the nerves that were affected in the plexus. Okay, next slide. So here's an actual cadaver showing the brachial plexus. So, and I want you. So up here you have C5, C6, C7, C8, and T1. And on this side, you have the musculocutaneous nerve, axillary, radial, and then the median, and ulnar. Okay, and so you have your M there and there. There's your M. Okay, next slide. Here's just a diagram of the brachial plexus. And you don't have to know where all these parts come from and go to, but what you have you have C5, 6, 7, 8, and T1. So these are the rami, so the ventral rami of the spinal nerves. You also have what are called trunks, divisions, cords, and then branches. We're not going to worry about the trunks, divisions, cords. You would learn those if you really got a deep dive in this. But the branches are the musculocutaneous nerve, the axillary nerve, median nerve, radial nerve, and ulnar nerve. Okay, next slide. And here's, I think, one of the last diagrams I'm going to show you the brachial plexus. So you have C5, C6, C7, C8, and T1. So your vertebral column's on this side. And then you have the musculocutaneous nerve. You have the radial nerve, the axial nerve, radial nerve. You notice those are posterior. And then you have we have the median nerve, and you can't see it because I'm in the way. And with my little, I don't think I can move me, can I? No, I can't. So, and then I can, so there's the median nerve and then the ulnar nerve. So this would be ulnar here. That would be ulnar. And then this would be coming together to make the median nerve. So various branches, two branches, the lateral and medial cords come together to make the median nerve. So, okay. And that would be your M there. So here's your M. Here, 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 and here. There's your M. Next slide. Okay. So after the plexus, where do these guys go? Well, we pointed out on the previous slide. I'm going to show you a little bit better diagram here. So we have the musculocutaneous nerve is here. So that comes down and it innervates the upper arm, of anterior part of the upper arm in anatomical position. Then we have the radial nerve comes out. It's back behind, so it's innervating things that are on the posterior side. Median nerve comes pretty much down the middle, and the ulnar nerve is on the medial side of the arm coming down. And so you see this groove for the ulnar nerve right behind the humerus there. So there's that little epicondyle there, and you can feel that, and you can just dig right in there and compress that ulnar nerve and make your little finger tingle. So anyway, next slide. Because the ulnar nerve innervates digits 4 and 5, mostly 5. Median nerve innervates digits 1, 2, or 1, 2, and 3. So that's your median nerve, ulnar nerve, and part of 4. And then the ulnar nerve innervates 5 and part of 4. So, next slide. Okay, so the cervical plexus, you have the phrenic nerve, and innervates the diaphragm. Brachial plexus provides sensory information to the skin of the arm and hand, and the major innervations are musculocutaneous, is the biceps brachii, axillary is the deltoid, radial is muscle of the posterior forearm and hand. Posterior forearm and arm. Also has some sensory on the back of the hand. So you have the triceps. So the musculocutaneous is the biceps, the radial is the triceps, and then the backside of the forearm. Median is the anterior forearm, and digits 1, 2, 3. Ulnar is the muscles of the anterior forearm, and digits 4 and 5. So next slide. Here's the easiest way to learn these things, I think, is I'll post this figure, and you can use this figure. So you color this figure in. You have the axillary is the red region there. Musculocutaneous is in blue, ulnar is in yellow, and median is green. Notice there's yellow and green on the forearm because both of them are there. And then you have the radial doing the backside. So you can use practice to use these figures and color them in for practice for yourselves. Next slide. These are just pictures of the muscles. So this is the axillary nerve, innervates the deltoid and the teres minor muscle. This is what the deltoid muscle looks like. It's on the shoulder. It's a delta. So the Greek letter delta is this. So if you flip it over, it's an upside down triangle, and there's your deltoid muscle. So this is the Greek letter delta. So it's deltoid muscle. Teres minor is part of the rotator cuff. So here's the teres minor. Here's a small muscle that's underneath down here. So the axillary muscle also innervates it. You don't have to know these. These are just, I want you to know, I want you to have seen these muscles. So when you get into muscles next semester, you'll have an idea of what these muscles innervate. Next slide. Radial nerve innervates muscles, the triceps, as well as the backside of the forearm. And these are the cutaneous innervations. And you notice that the radial nerve does the backside of the hand down here, and part of the backside of the forearm, and part of the backside of the upper arm. Okay, so and these are called dermatomes. Okay, so these dermatomes are places that are innervated. So you have sensory information coming from these various regions. So if you take your hand, and so you'd see like this part of the hand right here is where the radial nerve innervates. So if you're touching that, so if you poke yourself with something, then you can feel that, you know that the radial nerve is working. And this is actually done in neurology. They'll do a neurological exam, and they'll poke you with different things. So they'll poke you in different places. So they'll poke you here, then they'll poke you here, and they'll poke you here. And that gives you 3 nerves, radial, and since it's digits 1, 2, 3, so if you poke you here, that's your median nerve, and you poke over here, that's your ulnar nerve. If you can feel all 3 of those, then you know that those 3 nerves, the sensory information at least, is coming up from those nerves. Okay. Next slide. Okay. So we have the radial nerve is coming down and wraps around and does the backside. So you have branches that go off and take care of the triceps brachii, and then you have cutaneous branches as well that take sensory information up, and then you have various branches that go down to the extensor, what are called extensor muscles. So the radial nerve is involved in extension. So if your hand is extended, so that's a position of extension, right? So this would be flexion, extension, hyperextension, if you remember from the joints lectures. So if you see somebody and their wrist is dropped like this, okay, and they can't bring it up to a position of extension, that means that this is called wrist drop, and it means that the radial nerve is probably damaged, okay, because it's not able to innervate these muscles to pull your hand up. Okay, so wrist drop is an indication of radial nerve injury. Next slide. So forearm muscles and other muscles. So the median and ulnar nerves are primarily the ones doing the forearm muscles. Okay, musculocutaneous does comes a little bit down and hits some of the forearm there, mostly for cutaneous kind of stuff. Radial nerve is the posterior arm and forearm. Okay, next slide. I'm not going to go over this slide. This is too much. Okay, next slide. So here's some of here's the innervations of the musculocutaneous nerve, the median nerve and ulnar nerve. So there, median nerve and ulnar nerve, and showing the cervical nerves that and thoracic nerves and cervical and thoracic nerves that give rise to those nerves, and also talks about this slide gives you all the names of the muscles that they innervate down through here. Okay, so you don't have to know these. I just want you to know that there are muscular innervations as well as cutaneous innervations coming out of each of these nerves. Next slide. All right, so median nerve. So anterior forearm and muscle. I'm not sure there's anything I want to show you here except for the fact that there is this region down here near the wrist. It's called the carpal tunnel. Okay, and it's down here, and there is a ligament that goes across there. Okay, the skin innervation is lateral 2/3 of the palm, the thumb, index and middle fingers, and lateral half of the ring finger. Okay, so the median nerve, so it does the palm, so it does the lateral, so lateral 2/3 of the palm, so it'd be about from here over, and then thumb, first finger, second finger, first, second, third finger, and then the lateral half, okay, of the ring finger. So lateral, so it'd be, so it'd be that part of the ring finger. You have to do it on yourself because I think this is reversed with the camera, so it'll make. So I was trying to figure out a way to show it to you and reverse it, and I don't think I succeeded. Anyway, sorry. Okay, next slide. Ulnar nerve. So you can see it going right here behind the medial epicondyle. Comes out, goes down the humerus behind the medial epicondyle, then starts branching here, and it continues a couple more branches, and then it goes down here, and you hit the fifth finger, as well as part of the fourth finger, and a little bit of the muscle in the thumb over here. So, next slide. Okay, this just gives you the names of the muscles, and I don't think I really need to go over that. No, okay. Well, there's one thing. You do finger adduction and abduction in these fingers, not the thumb. You have only adduction with the thumb. Okay. You have flexion of digits 4 and 5, wrist flexion. Okay, or some of these things that you can do with the ulnar nerve. In let's see, the medial surface of the hand. You can have so some of this portion of the hand is sensory. You have what's called claw hand, and you if you have an ulnar lesion, you can't extend your fingers quite as well, so you end up with what's called claw hand. Okay, next slide. Oh, and the sensory information was it's all sensory here, and it's about in half of the fourth finger for sensory. Okay, so you have the this is sensory or cutaneous innervations from the brachial plexus. So you have the axillary nerve is up here, radial nerve is here, musculocutaneous. This is the dorsal side and the ventral side. Okay, so it shows the radial nerve here, ulnar nerve here, median nerve here. So you can measure 3 nerves just on your hand. The function of those from sensory at least. And then on the other side you can see the ulnar nerve innervates digit 5 and half of digit 4, and the median nerve does 1, 2, and 3 and half of 4. Okay, next slide. And I'm not going to go over this one. This what all I wanted to do in this slide was show you that there are these different regions, and so if you poke in various places on someone, that you can do a neurological exam. So there's all these different regions that are called dermatomes. Next slide. And this is just showing again the cutaneous innervations for the ulnar and median and radial nerves. Next slide. And this is showing again the ulnar nerve for digit 5 and half of 4, and then the ulnar nerve, ulnar 5 and half of 4, and the median is half of 4 and 1, 2, and 3. So, okay, next slide. So now we know the median nerve comes down right through the middle here, and so there's a transverse ligament, carpal ligament across there, and since the wrist is carpal, and so we have the median nerve coming down through here. We have a carpal tunnel space, so there's a space underneath that ligament where that median nerve is. If that nerve gets compressed, you can have pain in the hand in various regions, especially in the thumb and first 2 fingers, that kind of region. And so what you can do to fix this, and this, just so you know, that this carpal ligament, transverse carpal ligament, is known as the flexor retinaculum, flexor retinaculum of the hand, so which is different from the flexor retinaculum of the foot, and it's sometimes called the anterior annular ligament, but a lot of times it's called the transverse carpal ligament. Next slide. So what you do is you go in through the hand, through up a little bit hard, right up here in the palm, and you reach in and you cut this this ligament there, and so then you get a cut over here, and it relieves pressure on the median nerve there. So you have the median nerve, and these grayish things here, here, and here, those are all tendons coming through. So you have the tendons, and that ligament and all that stuff can compress on that nerve, and so you relieve the pressure by cutting the ligament. Okay, next slide.